Visual Studio. Anyway, we'll do that in a second. Right now, let me start the podcast. Tonight on the PowerScripting podcast, we're pleased to have with us two special guests. We have Adam Driscoll. Welcome back, Adam.
Hey guys. Thanks.
We know you were on some time ago, not too long, maybe 3 or 6 months, or I don't know. They kind of run together after a while. And everyone knows I never go back and look up the episode numbers. I'm really bad about that. But anyway, welcome back, Adam. You are PowerShell MVP, and you're still working at Dell, right? Formerly Quest?
Yep, that's correct.
Awesome. Welcome back. And let's welcome especially Andre. How do you pronounce your last name, Andre?
Sayer.
Sayer. Okay, I would have guessed that, but sometimes it's bad practice. Anyway, welcome to the show, Andre. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us go back to how you got into IT.
Let's see. So I'm Andre Sayer. I'm currently leading up the Microsoft effort to contribute to the PowerShell tools for Visual Studio. How I got into everything software-y related. If you guys know of the Lego Mindstorms, there used to be a precursor to that where you wrote Logo to control basically an early version of Lego Mindstorms, and you have it run around and there are little sensors, and I thought that was fascinating. And ever since then, hammering away at stuff on my own. Yeah,
that's awesome. I don't know if you noticed Jonathan's enthusiasm pop right there. You did.
Legos are still fun and awesome.
My son is upstairs right now using Lego Mindstorms to create a Rube Goldberg for a science project he has to present Saturday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You need to post a picture of that or a video.
Yeah, I need to do a video. If it works, it's going to be really cool.
I need to, and never mind. I fear that if we go too far into that topic, then we will never get back. Needless to say, I very much am in tune there. So Andre, you've been with Microsoft for how long?
Let's see, it's 2005, about 3.5 years now.
And
moved
you're
up here
a software
to Seattle for
developer
it.
or PM or what?
I'm sorry?
You're a software developer or a PM or what?
Yes, I'm a software developer who sometimes pretends he's a PM.
Yes, I'm in a similar position. I understand that.
I've seen PMs that try and be software developers. It doesn't work the other way.
I'm an admin that pretends to be a developer often.
Well, that I can understand.
Yeah. PowerShell does that sometimes.
Yeah.
It all depends on what hat you wear. Literally, which hat.
This is true. So, Andre, did you? What's your your technical background? Once you got into software development, in the corporate sense, and when did you start working with Visual Studio tools, and what did your team do? Stuff like that.
So the PowerShell team is part of the cloud platform tools. We handle all of the tools around Azure within Visual Studio. A lot of the Docker support comes from our team. The Node.js tools come from our team. And so I've been working within this group, I think ever since I joined Microsoft, a little bit of crossover with the Office tools, Visual Studio tools for Office, Office SharePoint. But before that, I've been kind of playing in the open source and Visual Studio space for about 12 years now.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
For a bit of time.
Now, do you guys have a home online that I could point people to as far as your team?
Not for the team specifically. Actually, here, let me see that before I stick my foot in my mouth.
I'm just trying to there's a server and cloud blog, and there's a bunch of different whether it's MSD and TechNet blogs and such. And yeah, it sounds like you guys are into a lot of different things actually, which is some of which we've had people on the show before to talk about. But
most of our stuff gets rolled into the larger Visual Studio blog. So just, hey, post this stuff. Here it is. It's cool. It's awesome. Sometimes we'll have our stuff posted on alongside the Azure blogs or like the PowerShell blog back during the summit, whichever is convenient because we're working with so many other teams.
So let me see if I understand this. This is an open source project. We've talked to a couple other people at Microsoft who contribute to open source projects. Most recently was probably Garrett. What's his last name? Sepik, the OneGet guy. And I want to say that I understood his role, but yours is a little bit different in the sense that, why don't you explain what happened between, or maybe I'll go back to Adam first. Adam, why don't you kind of tell us about the genesis of this project, and then tell us where Andre came in and how that relationship works out.
Okay, yeah. So I kind of started this project. It was the evolution of Power GUI VSX. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was the original Visual Studio PowerShell integration. So pretty much what I had done is taken Power GUI and just kind of smashed the Power GUI editor into Visual Studio. So it worked all right. You could open PowerShell files, you could debug it and everything like that. But it wasn't native. You had to Power GUI install and all that kind of stuff. So then eventually I was like, we should just have native support. So then I went off and just kind of looked a lot at the Python tools for Visual Studio and kind of saw what they were doing and started implementing native support. And then about 2 years ago, I released the first version of it, and I've just been kind of revving on that ever since. And then one day I was walking around work, and all of a sudden I got something on my phone that said, Scott Hanselman has followed you. I'm like, what? And I was like, Scott Hanselman has sent you a message. I'm like, what? And then he was like, hey, some guys from Microsoft want to talk to you about your tools. Give me your email address. And then that's kind of where it went from there. So it's kind of like, very sudden and very surprising. But from there, we actually started working with a different team. And then eventually I met up with Brian Moore, who's the product manager for this. And he introduced me to Andre and all the guys that have been working on the product. So it's kind of how it evolved.
That's awesome. So
yeah, pretty cool.
Was there a and I just was looking up the times that we've had you on in the past. Looks like twice that we talked about similar topics. Let's see, episode 119, and this was back in where's the date? 2010, July of 2010, and then episode 137, which was January in 2011. So, so the 137, that was about your request stuff at the time, the Workspace PowerShell module. But yeah, back in 2010, that's when we first started talking about your Visual Studio Extensions work. So it took a while. So what happened when so Microsoft approached you, and what was the conversation?
Pretty much that they wanted to find a way to contribute to make it so that they saw that customers wanted to use Visual Studio and PowerShell, and they wanted to have a richer experience around that. And they saw the gap. They realized that I was filling it, and that I couldn't do it myself. So they were just trying to look and see how they could help. Obviously, to benefit Visual Studio at the end. But.
Was it obvious at the time that this was going to be open source contribution? Because that would have been pretty fairly new for Microsoft at the time that they were talking to you, right?
Yeah, they originally got a hold of me probably a year and a half ago, so it was still pretty new in terms of the open source stuff, but it wasn't 5 years ago.
So it wasn't
Microsoft
shocking. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Andre, you came on the scene. Were you a part of the? Or were you one of the people that found Adam's work, or what was it? Like at the beginning, or were you kind of like hired on to? Hey, go do some Visual Studio team tools with this guy.
So it was somewhere between the two, closer to the latter. I wasn't aware of the project until one of the other managers on the team was like, "Hey, we need somebody to kind of lead and drive Microsoft's involvement in the project, and we think you'd be a good fit." And like, okay, yes, because I hadn't done open source since being hired up here. Mm-hmm. So it worked out naturally.
So is it is it weird that you're kind of like you're brought into a project that was already a year and a half old or whatever, and you're kind of but you're butting in on this guy's project, or was it everybody was like, oh, this is exactly this will help make this thing go faster kind of thing?
I think it was everybody was just really excited about being able to get things going a lot quicker, because hey, Adam has done a fantastic job setting up these tools, getting to where we are, and hey, let's throw a couple more people at the tools, because it's at the end of the day, we've got a little bit of extra time and manpower.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, Adam, was it complicated, or was this an easy thing?
It was easier than I expected. Like I thought there were going to be all these legal loopholes and all this kind of stuff that we'd have to go through to try to make this. And at first, that's what it seemed like. Microsoft actually has a separate entity where they do some of their open source work, and they're going to have to like contract people out to that, and they're trying to figure out all that. But in the end, it came down to very simple. Not a lot of overhead. It helped that I was already an MVP and signed all these NDAs and stuff like that. So.
Right.
That kind of stuff was really easy, and it's been really nice working with the guys, because they're willing to say what they're working on. They've been tracking a lot of their work in GitHub and all that kind of stuff, and keeping me in the loop. Obviously, I can't keep up with everything they're doing, because they're working obviously full time on this. So it's awesome to see it just kind of them hit the ground running and take it to where it is today. I mean, they've implemented features that I only dreamed of doing, like this x64 support was just huge.
So awesome. Okay, well then let's kind of take a step back and talk about what we have in PowerShell tools for Visual Studio. I just Googled PoshTools real quick, and I see two main results. I see Adam Driscoll / PoshTools GitHub repo, and I see a GitHub Pages. Are these the two main resources you would point people at anyway?
Yeah, I honestly, you linked to that GitHub Pages, and I forgot that was there. But I would say go to the GitHub repo is the one kind of main source we've been trying to track both the work we're doing and the issues that people are finding. So it's definitely the first place for people to go to kind of find out more about it. There's a wiki on there, report issues that they are encountering with it, and request features.
Okay, awesome. So. Should I not link people to the GitHub Pages then, or
I can update
not really
that.
updated?
I forgot it was there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I see some pretty screenshots, so I'm keeping it for now.
Right.
So,
that's the thing. It's a nice page.
Let's. I mean, it's been a while since we talked about it. What you were doing in any detail. So, why don't you tee it up, Adam, as far as kind of a reintroduction to PoshTools, and then Andre can tell us about what's what he and others have been working on at Microsoft, to collaborate with you.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I have Visual Studio. I want to do things, edit PowerShell scripts. Go.
Okay. Yeah. So it's an extension for Visual Studio. Currently, we support Visual Studio 2013 and Visual Studio 2015. Pretty much any edition except for Express, because Express doesn't support any old extension. It does support Community Edition, so if you're working on small projects and stuff like that, it's free. You can download it and install PoshTools, to your heart's content. So what PoshTools does is it allows you to edit PowerShell scripts just like you would in the ISE. You get IntelliSense, syntax highlighting, full debugging features. It's actually a richer debugging experience than the ISE. It has locals windows, the watch window, call stack. You can hover over variables and expand properties on them, that kind of thing. It also has a project system so that you can organize your scripts and kind of create modules a little bit easier. And additionally, it kind of gets, it benefits from all the other things that are inside of Visual Studio, like source control integration and that kind of thing. So there's just a lot of niceties of being inside the Visual Studio ecosystem that you get for having PoshTools installed.
So are there any downsides to using it? Are there any cases where you find yourself going, well, I'm just going to use the ISE for certain things, or can you do everything that you want to do? From I mean, you're a developer, Adam, so you probably live in Visual Studio anyway. But some of our listeners are obviously IT pros or engineers or whatever. What is the big benefit for them? Why would they want to look at this tool? What does it give them over what, say, the ISE does?
I mean, a lot of the things I've heard are the organization of scripts in the project system and source control integration are the big things that people try to get out of Visual Studio.
Okay.
Because it is just they don't get that inside the ISE. Right now, we're kind of heading towards ISE parity. That's kind of the idea, because there are things that are lacking. But I'd say, in terms of the benefits, those would be the two.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
If you notice any differences, let us know.
So, Andre, why don't you tell us, at what point did you get involved, and where did the features that you guys have been working on? If you want to talk about the latest release or whatever, that'd be good.
So the absolute largest feature that pretty much prompted us to get involved was 64-bit support for PowerShell within Visual Studio, especially with DSC becoming such a big thing. We needed to make sure we had a PowerShell experience. A lot of the new Azure commandlets, they like having 64-bit or running in a 64-bit environment. So we had to essentially create a whole new process and do a whole lot of inter-process communication, because Visual Studio is 32-bit. We also added in remote session support, where we make it a little bit nicer to open up a remote session and open up a script and tie in with Visual Studio's debugger, so you can go connect to your remote machine and debug remotely. And then we've been able to help out with a lot of bug fixes, performance improvements, because people's main thing with Visual Studio is that's kind of heavy. So hey, let's do what we can to make it as fast and as snappy as possible.
Now, does the version of PoshTools that's out today support the PowerShell version 5 and classes and all the stuff that's in there?
For the most part. Anything within the editor where you're typing and you want IntelliSense and you expect the little red squiggles, yes, it will support that. The new debugging features in version 5, such as the equivalent to attach to a running script, those we need to build some additional tooling around, and we're hoping to get to that soon.
Oh, so you are? Wow, that'll be nice. So you weren't kidding when you said parity with the ISE. You meant all the features of the ISE.
Yep.
That's great.
As much as we can.
So everybody knows that this podcast is it's an audio format, and there's lots of things that we're not going to be able to really go into much depth. But you guys have gone into depth just recently at the PowerShell Summit, right? Why don't you tell us? There's a 32-minute video, YouTube video that we will link to in the show notes. Why don't you guys tell us, how that show went down and what's talked about in there, so that people can, see for themselves, as you go through it.
I think the demo at the summit went down fantastically. It was a run-through of many of the major features, kind of geared towards people who haven't seen or used Visual Studio before, where, hey, here's a visual representation of the locals window and the watch window. You can see all your variables changing in real time. You can hit a button to step through your script line by line and have it automatically jump to the correct module file. Here's all of the colorization support that we've added. So the video, it's a introduction to PowerShell tools, and there's still even more things we couldn't get to in that 30-some minutes.
Nice.
Now that was just you, Andre, right? Adam wasn't there for that presentation, if I'm correct.
Adam.
No, I wasn't.
Sorry. Don't cry.
It was my first PowerShell Summit miss, but I couldn't make it because of work.
If you were able to make it, would have been even more awesome. Yeah. It was myself and thank you, and Brian Moore, our PM, he is hanging out in the audience, and I told everybody to buy him a couple beers.
Nice. So, do you guys want to talk a little bit about the testing experience?
Sure. So there is actually a test adapter that is built into PoshTools, and pretty much what it does is it discovers tester describe blocks, and from there they actually show up in the test manager window. So they'll actually show up alongside C# or C++ unit tests and that kind of thing, and you can just run them like you could run any other unit test inside Visual Studio. And it just reports, success or failure, just kind of like any other unit testing platform. So it's kind of cool because it kind of integrates and plays with, some of the other languages inside Visual Studio. Still ironing out some bugs around there, but it's another neat kind of little add-on that's available.
Excellent. So, is there anything else that you guys want to cover about what's coming, or anything else about the project? And then I kind of wanted to shift over to talking about news because there's a whole lot going on this week with Microsoft.
So there's in addition to our backlog being completely on GitHub, you can go and see how we at Microsoft have prioritized our tasks, whether we want to do things kind of like the May bucket, the June bucket. We're currently looking to implement the go-to definition feature, and as with anything, standard disclaimer, can't promise until it ships, blah, blah, blah. But we're looking at getting go-to definition up and running very soon. Let's see, do I have anything? I'm here. Let's the remote debugging stuff that we had mentioned, and a couple other things to bring us up to parity with the ISE.
Can you talk a little bit about the go-to definition? I think that's a feature that IT pros are probably not going to be familiar with at all.
So if you have a function, let's just say foo, at the beginning of your file or in another module file, you need to know exactly where it is and just kind of have a mental model of what's inside of it whenever you use it. However, let's just say you're in another file, you type foo and you discover that has a bug, or you want to review the code that was inside that, you have to go and search through just using text to currently find the definition. With the go-to definition feature, if you hit F12 or whatever keyboard shortcut you've assigned, then it will automatically hop to where the function was written.
And it'll find the file that it's in and everything, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's slick. That is definitely really cool. Thank you for that.
Is PoshTools available in the PowerShell module? What's it called? Module gallery? What's the new thing for the new term for OneGit? PowerShell module repository.
Package manager.
PowerShell package manager.
No, it actually isn't, because it's a V6. It's not really a PowerShell module or anything like that. So right now it's just on the Visual Studio Gallery.
Okay.
Yep. One other feature I wanted to talk about that I was experimenting with lately was Windows Forms support. So I actually kind of have like a crappy prototype put together where you can actually design Windows Forms and using the Visual Studio Form Designer, and it generates PowerShell on the back end. So I actually put a little YouTube video up of kind of how the current prototype is working. It's a little rough around the edges, but I'm getting there. But there's no time frame on that or anything, but it's kind of the cool thing about being in Visual Studio. You can kind of take advantage of some of that stuff.
Oh, that is cool.
Yes, that is cool. Now I'm trying to find the link to the all the different news that's coming up, including the package manager, and I can't. All the links are all talking about OneGit, so I'm having trouble finding everything. So that's awesome. PoshTools, go grab it. We'll have links in the show notes. Several links in the show notes, actually. So with that, new topic. Build is this week. Ignite is next week.
The summit
Jeff,
was like last week.
The summit was last week. Yeah, so it's really This is like just kind of geek heaven if you're if you live in the Microsoft world. For real. I guess I'll go first. The first thing that I heard about that really caught my attention was Nano Server. For people who had not heard about it yet, we'll put a link in the show notes. This is it's not Windows, okay? So this is a version of the Microsoft Server platform with no GUI. Now, it's different than Server Core. So Server Core is, GUI is turned off. GUI is disabled, or mostly so, and there was an evolution of that over a couple of versions, as most people probably know. It was, largely, it was a pain to use at first, and then people, PowerShell's ability to manage it, consistently, with commandlets, entirely, that was a challenge until maybe 2012 R2. And I don't know about the adoption of Server Core in the real world. I don't know that how high it ever gotten that. But Nano Server is different. So this is no GUI, as in the bits aren't even there.
It's
I'm
20
reading from
times smaller than Server Core.
It is ridiculous. 93% lower VHT size, 92% fewer critical bulletins, 80% fewer reboots.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of blown away when
Does
I heard
it have
about
a list of what roles, like what you can do? I know that it has like container support, and but what else? What all can you do on it so far?
Nothing. No.
You can spin it
Can't
up.
actually do anything.
I heard there's no MSI support, so you can't actually install anything on the operating system. You've got to put it in a container or something.
I heard the same thing. But
You can set up a
needs
remote
MSI?
session to it.
You can. Right. So even though there's actually no interactive shell, so you cannot even, you install it on a server and you're like, okay, I can log in now. You can't log in. There's no interactive shell. But you can get a remote session to it. I've not
I thought
seen
a
it
couple
done.
things that were interesting were only x64 and that it has no GUI and just .NET Core. So.
Can you run Hyper-V on it? Is that one of the things it does? Does anybody know?
Ooh, nice. We got a great link in the chat room with a summary. Let's see here. Nano Server. What was your question, Jonathan?
What kind of roles? What can you run Hyper-V on it?
Hyper-V.
Okay.
Yes.
That makes total
Hyper-V is one of
sense.
them. ASP.NET, clustering, configuration via PowerShell and WMI.
Containers? I'm sure it has.
But I don't think that we know yet what container means with Windows, because there's a lot of double talk there that talks about Docker. And I'm a little confused. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know that we have the whole thing understanding on what a Windows container is, unless they've been talking about it in detail today and I missed it. But I'm under the impression that we're going to get the details on that next week at Ignite.
Oh, okay.
Unless Jeffrey is already talking about this week. But as I understand it, he was kind of breaking things between this week and next week. Looks like there is some, there's people putting notes in the links in the chat in Windows, so awesome.
Well, I know that during the keynote, Mark Rusinovich was demoing basically running a website with inside a container, inside a Windows container, and then he basically brought up the same code inside a Linux container. So you're going to be able to migrate your code back and forth. It's not going to matter what you run it on. Yeah. Which is going to be pretty amazing. Is the way I understand it.
Would that be .NET code that's running in mono on Linux, or is it, or what? I don't know. Does anybody else know more details on that?
I believe .NET Core is cross-compile. You can cross-compile it against the different OSs. I don't know if it's typically mono.
Yeah, it's .NET Core will run on Windows, on Linux, on the Mac OSs. It's
Hey, that's
Mono. Yeah, Mono's
I
going
did not
to
know
be
that.
using stuff from there.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. He was doing this in Visual Studio. So he was pulling up the code, the web code in Visual Studio, and then he pushed it to a Docker container on Linux and fired up the web page, and you could see the website.
Dang.
And yeah, it was pretty cool. And just, to think of what the future is going to be like. You're not going to be installing applications on servers anymore. I think they're going to all be containerized and segregated so that you can run, who knows how many containers on a nano server, and basically have all of the server's capability to run those containers, because you have very little overhead from the operating system. And the containers themselves, I don't think, have a lot of overhead, so the density could be astonishing.
So we do have a link in the show notes. Nano Server, a cloud-optimized Windows server for developers. Channel 9 video. So this is the session that we're talking about. Those details came out. And yeah, it's crazy. .NET on Linux. What is Linux, Scott? In a container, attached to a debugger, the Linux instance in Visual Studio. Huh. So, yeah, that is pretty cool. Couple other details on here. Less than 3 minutes to install. 400 meg is the on-disk.
That's the operating system.
Yeah, that's the operating system. 3 minutes.
Not 3 minutes to install something in a container. That's 3 minutes to install the operating system.
So, I forgot to say, did I tell anybody this? I am interviewing Ben Pierce, virtual PC guy, next week at Ignite.
Oh, cool.
So I
for our podcast or for one of the other ones?
Yeah, for us.
Okay.
For our podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll let you guys listen. Totally. So we'll go into more details on containers with him. But anyway, that's good stuff. Next topic. What else are you guys excited about? The build news. Fire.
Did you guys see VS Code?
Yes.
Yeah, I downloaded it. I fired it up, and I looked at a PowerShell script in it, and I went, huh. And then I closed it and opened the ISE.
Well, it's got syntax highlighting. Yeah, I already started looking at a little bit like how they did the languages. It's all crazy because it's all in TypeScript, so it's all JavaScript code pretty much, and that's pretty much what defines each one of the languages. Syntax highlighting files is just this JavaScript file with all this type definition in it. So, pretty interesting.
They do
stuff.
plan a couple better extensibility points in the future, so we'll see what that means for PowerShell. I don't have an answer either, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, the .NET side of things uses like OmniSharp, which is like another process running that you kind of shuffle off commands to from the VS editor, so you can get IntelliSense and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, it did not look like a replacement for PoshTools by any
But you
stretch.
know what it does look like? It looks like a replacement for me for Sublime Text.
Oh,
exactly that.
okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm a cross-plat kind of guy these days. I'm on presently, as of this week, I'm booting full-time into my Mac OS. I still keep a Windows VM running all the time, but this Visual Studio Code runs on Windows, Linux, and Mac. It's very lightweight, and it supports editing lots of different kinds of files, and that's kind of when doing work with Splunk, there are lots of different kinds of files that I have to touch.
Yeah,
So,
I can't imagine.
and our configuration file format looks like a Windows any file, and any format is supported. So I was happy. But yeah, good call on that. If anybody wants to install it using Chocolatey, then you can just do Choco inst Visual Studio Code, one word, or install package should do it. Let me try. because you guys know I like to install
Yes, you do.
things well on the podcast. I did it via chocolate. Yes, that it does work identically. So, actually, I have to install my NuGet and my. Okay, never mind. I just broke it. But yeah, the chocolatey install works. And very cool. Anything else on code?
Or anything else from the summit, Andre, that was exciting?
Oh, the Pester
April.
integration in WMF. That was surprising even to me, because there's this open source piece of code. Pester, if you don't know, for those listening who don't know, is a unit test framework for PowerShell developed outside of Microsoft. However, because it's gotten such a positive response from the community, is now going to be shipping as part of PowerShell 5.0 and thus shipping inside Windows. Open
I
source
think
code
this is a
in
world
Windows.
record.
Yeah,
This is the first.
they made a big deal about it at the summit, I think, that Dave had gotten his code will be in Windows. Now, what I wonder about that, though, is how easy will it be to update Pester? Like, will you just be able to do, use the module tools to just, find module Pester and update it that way? Or, I mean, once they put it in Windows, it's kind of static at that point, unless you have some ability to update it.
No, it'll just come down during Windows updates.
Yeah, there's ways to get updates as far.
That would be
as far as
crazy.
The
That would be
WM
crazy.
the PowerShell team. I'll leave that up to them because I don't know.
So, yeah, that was a pretty epic and kind of surprising thing. So, Pester, what about, let's see, I want to say a new build dropped of WMF5.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, April 29th. Yeah, so that was just yesterday.
Yeah,
So-
the one thing that I know about that is it brings down level support, so you can install WMF5. At least they announced that you were going to be able to install it on Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008 R2 and above, which is cool. They have, as far as I know, they have never done that
that's
with
right.
a preview.
Okay, they were talking about it, but yeah, this is the first time it's actually delivered on it.
Well, yeah, and they never said they were going to do it in the preview up until recently, that they had, because what we were hearing
yeah.
before was that, we're going to provide these previews, and then after it ships, then we'll look at providing down-level support, or when it ships, we intend to have down-level support. But they've done that early so that we can start testing some of the new PowerShell version 5 stuff against down-level, which is really awesome. I'm very happy about that, especially from the DSC side. Because I think a lot of the new stuff, the package manager and being able to, find modules and import them from a repository, all that stuff is cool. But to me personally, from what I do, the DSC stuff is what I'm most excited about, the improvements on that side.
Awesome. Yeah, I have not even had a chance to check it out. Let's see. So, package management is the name of the new module. Is that what it is?
Does anybody know if build 71 of Windows 10 has that version of WMF5, the latest version? Because they came out, basically, I think they came out the same day.
That's a good question.
But I didn't know the build number. I pulled up PS version table on that machine, but I wasn't sure what the build number was for the new WMF5 preview. So I didn't know off the top of my head.
On my Windows 8.1 box.
Yeah, I don't have it on the machine that I'm not running Windows 10 on my podcast machine.
Yeah, me neither. I haven't even booted up Windows 10, actually. I downloaded it and never got around to it. I feel bad. But I'm looking at the April version, and it looks like they did rename OneGit. So it's now called Package Management, the module itself.
Okay.
I don't know if there's been any changes substantially or not, but it kind of looks like with this release, that's kind of when the news is starting to solidify for package management showing up in Windows. I don't know if you're getting the same feel, but like I know that we've been talking about package management in Windows for many months now, and I think it's kind of it's kind of hitting the mainstream tech press only as of this week.
Yeah, that I agree with that statement. Makes sense.
So there's a link. I'll put this one in the chat room right now. Introducing package management in Windows 10. So even the phrasing of the blog post, is just kind of like here you go. We're coming out on the scene.
Right.
So, but we have talked about it before. We had Garrett Sepik on the show. So I will there's going to be a ton of links in this episode, which is refreshing. That's what we used to do, Jonathan.
Yes.
Kinds of.
So it looks like GPDuck is showing us version numbers, and it looks like the version of PowerShell in the WMF5 preview is slightly newer in the latest preview drop than it is on build 71.
So 50.107.40 for Win 10 and 101.105 on the WMF5. Interesting.
But they dropped 2 builds of Windows 10 within a week of each other. I think 61 just came out last week, if I remember right. Maybe it was 2 weeks, but they were pretty run on top of each other.
It's kind of hard to keep up with Microsoft this week or past couple weeks.
I wonder if they'll drop another build during Ignite next week.
Yeah,
they could.
I'd like to see Nano Server preview.
Yeah.
And I want to know what containers, like how that works. I mean, can you run a container inside a full version of server? I would assume you can, but I haven't seen enough details yet. Maybe there's stuff out, and I just haven't seen it yet, which is fine.
So Andre, you're saying that build 70 or build 74 has Pester in it already?
Yep, I have a new machine that I reinstalled this morning, actually. Build 10.074. Hey, I was able to import the Pester module and do all the Pester goodies.
Okay.
Sweet.
Very nice. So you had to import it, or it was there?
It was...
did you import it? Did you do...
it's probably shows up module in GMO list available.
/module/ Pester. I just make sure before I stick my foot in my mouth. It did an upgrade, so it might not be a completely clean machine, but I think it's included in there.
Okay.
But you'll want to confirm before take my word as gospel.
Yeah, the upgrade experience between the versions of Windows 10 has been amazing.
Tell me about it. I've not tried yet.
It's been seamless. Basically, you upgrade to a new version, all your apps work, all your data's there, it's fine. I've had to roll back a couple times because my VPN wouldn't work or something. So I just rolled back to the previous version, and that worked fine. The system was flawless after it rolled back. I mean, it's really, I don't know what all they're doing under the covers, but it's working really well. And I think I heard on Windows Weekly that you're going to be able to upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10 directly, which is pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing. And that's what a lot of people do, skipping 8 if they didn't like the start interface.
Right.
Which I never got bent out of shape about. I never.
No,
really
I got used to it. I mean, I hit the Windows key and I type and I get what I need. And it, the interface that comes up in between those two things doesn't really matter to me too much.
Same here.
The biggest problem I had was with there was a drop of Windows 10 where that stopped working. You couldn't just hit the Windows key and start typing. It was like the first time they had Cortana, and they had the start menu and they had Cortana, and you couldn't search the start menu anymore. And that was a frustrating few weeks for me.
Yeah,
but thankfully they integrated the two, and now all that stuff works the way that it used to, and it's faster.
Nice.
Yeah, but I haven't heard too much more from Build yet. But all I really did was watch most of the keynote, so I don't have any idea what happened today. And I know that Jeffrey Snover had some sessions where he was going to talk about Nano Server, and I don't know what else he was going to talk about, but
I've got a lot of stuff.
I need to track that stuff down
for next week.
I'm still trying to catch up with some of the YouTube videos from the PowerShell Summit, because all that stuff is out now, except for I heard there were a couple sessions that they held back that they may release after some announcements this week. But yeah, at least most of the sessions are already available on YouTube. So
where do we point people to for the videos? Is that going to be on PowerShell.org?
There's a YouTube channel. Let me find it for you and put it in the chat room.
I found it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a playlist.
If you go to, if you just Google PowerShell Summit, you'll go to PowerShell.org, and then you can go to the 2015 page, and then it did get me to the session recordings there. So, and now it's in the chat room. Thank you. Nice. Deploying PWA using DSC and Active Directory. PowerShell for recalcitrant DBA developers. That's funny. So, Andre, were you there the whole week, or the whole show?
Unfortunately, I was only able to be there the first day. I had some personal stuff the rest of the week back here in Seattle. But the one day I was there, it was amazing getting to talk to everybody and just kind of feel the excitement around PowerShell and all the new stuff that we were announcing.
Nice.
They also had good barbecue in North Carolina.
Yeah, it's cool if you go around different parts of the country, especially in the south, southeast, and west. There's different barbecue, and there's a lot of different kind of. Some have more emphasis on sauces or different bases. You have the mustard versus like a vinegar-based barbecue sauce, and yeah, that's I like to try barbecue everywhere I go. Just about. Jonathan, have you ever been to was it shoot, what is the barbecue place up it's on Bells Ferry Road and Telling Parkway?
Bells Ferry and Telling Parkway?
If you've not been there, you need to go. I don't know why I can't remember the name of it all of a sudden. DJ's? No. Yeah. JD's Barbecue.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Is it good?
We'll address this offline.
Okay.
People who are not in Woodstock, Georgia. Yes, it's really good. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. I may be the only one. I think Stephen Owen actually lives in Woodstock too, from what he said. So.
What, really?
Yeah, we got to keep all the MVPs in one area of Atlanta.
Funny.
It's just safer that way.
Yeah. That's funny. Hey, new MVPs since, I don't know if you talked about last episode?
No, I didn't. I haven't done a news episode in a long time. It's embarrassing.
Well, congratulations to the new ones. We don't know who you are.
We'll have to look it up.
April it happened, so consider this the best effort recognition.
No, hopefully I'll do a better job at some point.
Good.
Give them the recognition they deserve. This is kind of like a news show, though.
Yeah, it kind of is. So I want to thank Andre and Adam for playing along, because this is a little new to us. We don't normally bring the guests into the news, so I think it worked out fine.
Hi, anytime.
And I have to acknowledge the fact that this is episode 300 of the podcast. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
You guys contributed to history. So I was slightly not really related at all. I was on a Reddit thread that was about the Windows 10 package management announcement.
Okay.
And somebody said something, and I reacted to it with a quote that I've heard Jeffrey Snover say many times, which was that
I saw that
Microsoft...
something about that on Twitter.
Yeah, so here's the story. I pasted in there, Microsoft is incapable of sustained failure. And I put it in quotes, and then I
think he said
said,
error, didn't he?
A little. Well, so that was the part of the problem. I put it in quotes, and then I said, dash Jeffrey Snover, distinguished engineer or whatever, and then somebody replied right to it, and with a link to a Google search, and it was the quoted with Google showing 0 hits. He basically called us a liar. So I went on Twitter and said, "Hey Jeffrey, can you help me out here? Can you quote, say the quote so that I can link to you saying the quote?" So it was kind of funny. But yeah, you're right. I actually misquoted it. It was not exactly. It wasn't failure. It was error.
So did he do that eventually? Because I know the first time you tweeted him, you tweeted back. He was like, "Dude, what are you talking about?"
Yeah. I guess if I was drunk the first time, so I said something about it being only noon. Yeah, but he, I can't bring it up right now. My Twitter client is stuck, not loading for some reason, or I'd bring it up. But yeah, someone else, once they said that it was sustained error, then I was able to find a useful link. So I was able to provide the source to people on Reddit who are notoriously either liars or sarcastic, trolls. And yeah, there's just all kinds there. But you definitely don't believe things that people say. That is good policy. Anyway, Jeffrey really did for real say that. So
yes, he said it more than once.
There are 36 videos in that PowerShell Summit channel.
Yeah.
That is
It's really
epic.
cool that they recorded all those this time.
I know.
Yeah, they
I'm kind of
recorded them
excited.
last time too.
Did they really?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't realize it.
yeah, 'cause there were quite a few of them up from both North America and Europe from last year.
Nice.
Cool.
Well, it's possible that some of these then are not from the most recent show then.
Well, there
I can't
should
tell.
be.
I'd like to-
There's a playlist that specifically is for this summit.
Oh,
the one
yeah,
that just
okay,
passed.
gotcha. No, then that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it says 36 videos, 4,300 views. So nice. Yeah, that was well done to everybody. So, anything else we want to cover? Joel's talking in the chat room about something that's interesting sounding, but it's vague enough that I haven't been able to really talk about it here. But
I don't
he's
know
saying-
what AppX is. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So it looks like there's a new new Windows 10 app model, and Microsoft will allow desktop applications in the Windows Store. So okay. So that's it. That's what I was wanting to understand. That's what I thought he meant, but I was kind of confused about some of the particulars. So yeah, that's a big deal. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the Windows Store sucks.
Actually, have you seen the version that's in Windows 10?
No, I have not.
It's way
But they don't-
better. It is.
How so?
It is significantly. It looks like a real app store.
Does it still have all the crap in it? No, it's not the stuff that's not there. The notable absences. Like the apps that you kind of want to be there, but they're not there because people were not making things for the ecosystem. I'm saying all the stuff that.
Well, it doesn't change the actual apps that are in the store. It just presents them in a much more attractive fashion, and the searching functionality is much better. So maybe it does a better job of surfacing the real apps as opposed to the clone type pretender apps.
Okay, we have a clarification, a couple related to this. So Dave White is saying that last year's PowerShell Summit recordings were basically ad hoc stuff done by attendees. This year, or Europe this year, and then the North American, those were done kind of professionally.
Wait a minute.
That was hooked up to the presenters' laptops.
Dave Wyatt?
Yeah, he's in the chat room.
The Dave Wyatt?
The Dave
The
White,
guy that
yes.
shifted Windows?
He's in the chat room? Dude, that is awesome.
And then the other clarification is that AppX, this is a part of the technology that is related to the getting these Windows Store, the non-Windows Store apps into the Windows Store is using AppX so that it is like MSI, but different.
So I have to find this. This was my favorite thing that happened during the summit. if I can find it real quick. It had to
What's
do
that?
with Dave Wyatt and that announcement.
Mhm.
And let me find it real quick. It had to do with the fact that he was that his code was going to be shipping in Windows. Did you ever see the Intel commercial about our rock stars, or not your rock stars?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody posted that and said Dave Wyatt's walking around like this at the summit. It was hilarious. Yeah, that was
Sorry, I
my,
had to space out for a minute. I had my son to come and ask me a question.
that
I
was
totally spaced out.
that was my favorite tweet from the summit that I saw, and I can't find
Yeah.
it.
Dave's in the chat room. I'm kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, wait a second. Joel is now correcting himself. So I don't know if it's App V or App X. App X is the deployment model for universal apps. App V gives non-Windows apps into the store. And App X gets everything to the store. Okay, that's weird.
Did they
So I knew
rename?
what App V was.
Yeah, App V. That doesn't sound like what App V is. They may have.
Yeah, I
they might
think
be
that
reusing that term.
either they're
FX
reusing
they've
it.
had for store apps for a while. That's been how store apps have been for Microsoft Store apps for Universal apps or whatever. But
Yeah.
it sounds like App V is now packaged in App X, so you can get Win32 apps into the store using App X on App V.
That sounds really bizarre.
Yeah, AppV is essentially the virtualization technology, and AppX is the packaging and delivery mechanism.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
And I knew App V for that. What I didn't know was whether or not we were using the correct acronyms for the correct things. That's all. If that last summary that you sent is correct, then okay, I'm happy. I think I understand. So, App V is used as a shim, if you will, to get the Win32 stuff into what was an existing packaging platform for the App Store, which is called App X. Yes.
See, I'm waiting for a team to come out with AppY, then you
You got to talk to this naming guy at Microsoft.
Okay. Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. I totally unplugged my headphones by accident. Anyway, so App Y is the new one, right? The correct one.
Yeah, that's how you get iOS apps in.
That was the other thing, guys. Jeez. Yeah. So they also announced that you can get iOS and Android apps in Windows.
Mm-hmm.
That was, as I understand, it is not. It does require a change to code, but it's supposed to be a minimal kind of thing. So I haven't read up much on this, but I am very interested in it because, people want the apps. The apps where they are and where they aren't. That's really important. And if you want to have that game or that app and it's not on your platform, well, that's kind of a reason not to use the platform. I thought it was kind of profound that Microsoft. It's just yet another example of the new Nadella Microsoft. Really, it's kind of interesting. I mean, they really Microsoft is almost unrecognizable to under Ballmer. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, there's definitely been a lot of changes.
All right, Joel's going to continue to straighten us out.
To see well
/confuse us.
actually.
Yes. Java and Objective-C can be compiled to target universal apps and thus get in the store. Yeah. So they gave an example of Candy Crush. So they the makers of Candy Crush ported their app over to show up in the Windows 10 store. So that's good stuff. I appreciate that. And have you guys seen some of the I mean, everybody's familiar with the Surface devices, but have you seen some of the manufacturers that have been making similar devices to that in the hardware space? And I know, Jonathan, you've played around with a lot of hardware, haven't you?
Not as much lately, but some of the stuff I've seen.
I guess that was kind of your Coke job, really, wasn't it? Not your Home Depot job?
Yeah, exactly.
We were in the store not too long ago and picked up, actually this was this week, a HP Envy X2. And it is, it's a 15-inch. They have a 13-inch as well, but this one's a 15-inch slab or whatever. It's got a kickstand on it, and it's got a removable keyboard. So it does definitely has a feel similar to the Surface, but it's bigger. Fanless. I think it is. It's got the latest Intel. I forget which chip is, but it's like the Moon Mobile one. I don't remember what chipset it is, but
what's
so
this
far,
HP company? I don't know what you guys.
all right, Dell guys, what you guys got going on?
Yeah, that machine they gave away at Build looked pretty sweet. I'm trying to find out what it was, but I can't find it.
All right, I have to click on this link that Joel just pasted. How developers really feel about Microsoft welcoming iOS and Android. And the picture is of Hanselman with a couple of toys in his hand. So I'm not sure what that's about yet. So anyway, I think we hit just about most of the biggest things that are important. So I'm going to call this a show, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Before we let our guests go, we do have to ask some questions. So Andre, I have a question for you. I would like to know, everyone would like to know, our listeners, if you could be a superhero or have a superpower, would it be and why?
It'd probably be. Shoot, that was a tough one. It'd probably be the Flash, just because I like running around and bouncing off of walls, and it's really hard for me to just sit still. So it'd let me get from A to B really quickly, and I think it'd be kind of fun. And besides, he's a goofball.
I love the TV show, The Flash. I'm a big fan.
I have not seen it yet. I'm slacking. Sorry about that.
And I do wish I knew what question we're supposed to ask you, Adam, but I can't find it.
Let's see.
Did we ask you what your first computer was, Adam?
You know what? I bet my first computer was an HP. Thinking about
We're asking him now.
Yeah, that was it.
Was it like a 486 or a Pentium or?
Yep, it was a Pentium 4 hyper-threaded computer. I don't remember the specific model or anything, but I remember it was running like Windows 98. It was an HP, and it had that little like slide down thing so you could get to your floppy disk. And yep,
I'll find it for you. Hold on.
it was like kind of a purplish blue color.
Was this before or after the turbo button?
After. I had a 486 that had a turbo button.
Okay.
386
one of the ugly gray boxes.
I know 386s had turbo buttons. Some of them did.
On your screen there, Adam, if you look at the link I pasted. So I just searched for HP Vectra. That used to be their PC line back in the day.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. These are some nice looking machines.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't know if you found yours yet, but
it was similar to this one.
So, memories. Yep, the one that I had in my mind. That was going to be my guess. Yep. Nice. Yeah, good gear.
Uh-huh. like a fine scotch. It just gets better with time, right?
Yeah, where's that Vectra? All right, good stuff. Well, thank you very much, Adam Driscoll, Andre Sayer, man, Sayer. So usually I practice.
Usually he nails it.
Yeah. Anyway, we have been doing this a while. Thank you guys. This has been great, and we'll hope to talk to you again another time. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And everybody in the chat room, best live podcast in a little while. Thank you very much. Although they can't actually respond. They won't hear this for another 10 seconds.
No, I don't want to talk about Microsoft Edge.
Should have
The
left
Edge.
it Spartan.
Yeah, I like Spartan better than Edge. And it's a very descriptive name. I mean, it is a Spartan browser. There's no question. It was a perfect name.
One of my friends works on that team, and they say the Spartan and Sparta jokes are just endless. 300 references.
We got to change this.
Well, then marketing got a hold of it, and
Yeah. Well, a lot of my friends work for Cox Communications. I'll just leave it there.
at least they gave it a name. It's Edge. It's not, Microsoft's Internet Explorer browser, 64-bit version 10 point
Enterprise Edition
Enterprise.
R2.
Yeah. I still remember when people were mad that they released it as .NET. It's like, how do you search that?
Yeah, that is true. That is.
We'll sell you the whole OS, but you only need the Edge.
Are we gonna have Edge books next?
Oh, you never know.
I just thought of that. You can have that one.
Yeah, but they'll be packaged